Caitlin Way from Whole Foods Market, Madison, here in town, and I'm the Marketing and Community Outreach Specialist. Been here for 5 years, and previous to Whole Foods, I was with Buy Fresh, Buy Local in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so it's a little bit closer to the farmers out there, so have a little bit of perspective on sort of the whole grocery scene. And the talk today will be on greening your groceries. At Whole Foods Market, we're definitely structured and focused around being a spot where there's lots of different green options for you to choose from, but there's a lot of basic principles for selecting green, eco-friendly, healthy products that you can take anywhere you shop. So we'll talk a lot about things that you can take with you wherever you go. So the different ways that you can choose for groceries, you can go organic. Organic is a certified process, so it's regulated and it's an option that you know doesn't contain GMOs, is great for the environment, but sometimes it can be a little bit more expensive because it is a really regulated and rigorous process to be organic certified. So we're going to also talk about if buying all organic isn't something that you're interested in diving right into, that you don't have to go all the way. There's a lot of things that you can, good choices and great choices you can make. You can choose sustainable seafood. Navigating the seafood counter can be pretty tricky sometimes in terms of sustainability. So we've got some great guides for you in terms of what are some best sustainable seafood choices, some good alternatives, and some items to definitely avoid. We also, if we have time, we have some info on the animal welfare ratings. At Whole Foods Market, we have, you'll see by our different meat items, that they have a number by all of them. So if you're looking to take sustainable and eco-friendly shopping into the meat department, there's a lot of great options there as well as looking for a non-GMO project logo. GMOs are a really hot topic right now, and a lot of people are looking for ways that they can avoid GMOs. And lastly, we have options for green cleaners. At Whole Foods Market, we have a whole eco rating scale so that you can pick your cleaners based on the eco rating that you're interested in, from products that you can pick up anywhere, like the 7th generation products, eco products. So I think we're going to start off with sort of the entryway to buying organic. I've been with Whole Foods Market for 5 years, and even I don't, and I'd say a lot of people who work here are definitely not 100% organic shoppers. You know, I probably know as much as most people know about the pesticides and different environmental concerns of conventional farming, but it still doesn't mean that I would buy 100% organic all the time. So the Dirty Dozen is sort of a way to prioritize if you're thinking of buying some organic products, or you're weighing the option of you have a conventional product and an organic product side by side. Let's say one is a little bit more, what's the value in that? The Dirty Dozen is a list of produce items that has the most pesticide residue that was put together by the Environmental Working Group. There's a lot of different, or the list you guys have is just a slight bit different, but for the most part, a lot of the things that all the different items in the Dirty Dozen have in common is they're all thin-skinned produce items. So if you can't necessarily remember the list off the top of your head, you can kind of think about the thin skin. So we have potatoes are on the Dirty Dozen list, something that would definitely be worth it to go organic. Sweet red bell peppers, grapes, strawberries, apples, pears, we have spinach, lettuce, and celery. Other items on the list are different stone fruits like nectarines, cherries, and peaches, as well as if we extend our list, cucumbers are also something to look for, organic, as well as blueberries. Organic, or at Whole Foods Market, we're a certified organic grocery, so one thing that we do is focus on advocating for organic foods. So there's also a clean 12 items that are lowest in pesticides. I wouldn't necessarily advocate for those, but definitely in my own personal shopping, when I see something like an onion or something with a thick skin, such as sweet corn, I would feel a little bit more comfortable just going conventional on those as well. It gets a little bit more tricky when we start talking about sustainable seafood. At Whole Foods Market, we label all the different seafood in our seafood department. So it's a little bit easier when the ratings are there. I think there's some other grocers in town that also put these ratings on their seafood, but this is sort of a snapshot of what those ratings mean. These were put together by a nonprofit organization. Ours are from the Monterey Bay Aquarium and the Blue Ocean Institute. We only carry yellow, green, and MSC certified seafood at Whole Foods Market, so in 2012 we stopped carrying the red rated seafood. These different standards are for the wild-caught seafood, and then we also have a separate logo for the farm-raised seafood or aquaculture. One thing that I didn't realize necessarily until I really looked into it, so it's a bit confusing, is the red, yellow, green is classic, red light, green light, pretty easy to understand. But then on the top of that, beyond green light, is the MSC certified sustainable seafood. The MSC certified sustainable seafood, you'll see this logo here, and those are fisheries that have been certified by the MSC to be sustainable. So the green items are ones that haven't yet undergone that certification process, but the MSC certified seafood you can find at green grocers like Whole Foods Market, but also the new fish McBites like at McDonald's. Those are actually MSC certified as well. They took the different scraps or the parts that you wouldn't necessarily sell as whole fish to the grocery stores, and they made a product out of it. So that's kind of a really neat way that they were able to reuse and make the most of these really carefully raised certified fish. So some of the different issues facing sustainable seafood and why having sustainably certified seafood is important is right now they are saying that about 80% of the seafood population is at risk, depleted, or seriously overfished. In the 1990s, we started to see a lot more attention towards sustainable seafood and the risks of overfishing when in 1992 in Newfoundland they had a collapse of the cod population. So in 1992, the cod population collapsed and they lost over 40,000 jobs because of overfishing and the collapse of the seafood population. So we're starting to look at ways to make sure the different species aren't at risk in that way, aren't being exploited, so we don't lose whole ecosystems or risk the collapse of the ocean and world. So some different ways we're looking at fish that is a little bit more difficult to have farm raised or to protect are the predatory fish, the fish that eat other fish. But farm raised seafood is also a really great option. It's one of the different industries that is not heavily regulated. So at Whole Foods Market we have a farm certification process that says it's responsibly farmed. We don't currently use the certification process by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, but there is also a list out there by the Monterey Bay Aquarium that I think we also have some great ones on here of good farm-raised fish that you can look for. So in our seafood department, we do have this little symbol by the different responsibly farmed fish items, or you can consult your Great Pocket Guide here. And some different things to look for in aquaculture is the aquaculture standards that we go for at Whole Foods Market. There's no antibiotics, added growth hormones, or poultry and mammalian products in the feed. So a big thing and the reason that I would really hone in and wanting to know where my farm fish is coming from is the overuse of antibiotics in raising farm fish. I know overuse of antibiotics, especially in raising animals and food, is a concern of a lot of people right now. Another is no GMO or cloned seafood. Some fish operations in aquaculture, there's the offshore aquaculture standards, or aquaculture facilities where they will have their fish farm not in an ocean, but then there's other ones that are, like here, they'll be in a river farming fish, or they'll be in the mangroves farming fish, and it's really important to ensure that those genetically modified or cloned seafood doesn't get into the natural waterways. Another standards for aquaculture and responsibly farm-raised fish would be no added preservatives, and ensuring that the fisheries minimize the environmental impact. So when we do have these farms associated with different waterways, we want to make sure that the pollution from the processes isn't going back into the waterways. So the Girl Scout motto of leaving it better than you found it. A great fish farm that we have here in Wisconsin is Rushing Waters in Palmyra. It's a really great place for families. You can go out there and they'll give you a fishing pole and you can fish right in their facilities, and it's like, put the pole in, the fish comes out, so it's a lot of fun if you have smaller kids that are wanting to get into fishing, but you really want to make sure that they have that instant gratification, so that's a really fun place in Palmyra. Let's see. Does anyone have any specific questions before I talk about some of these other items? Yeah.
I didn't see raspberries listed on this.
Yeah, definitely. When I was gathering all these items, actually a customer asked me, she's like, why don't you have raspberries? And we both agreed that I would put raspberries on that list. That's definitely a thin-skinned item. So thin-skinned or fruit that's grown towards the ground, like raspberries, usually is a little bit more difficult to keep healthy with out there. So yeah, I put that on my.
I thought maybe there was
maybe like there are some things, in different. Organic wine is one of those things where you don't see as much organic wine, and some of the reasons are that they are grown organically just as part of the tradition of making wine, and also some regions they don't need to have the pesticides to keep their grapes healthy. So especially in the Mendoza region of Argentina, pesticides are really expensive, so it's just not something that they use. A lot of wine growers are also about the terroir, and you don't want to necessarily do that to the soil. I knew an organic farmer in Pennsylvania who said he used to taste the soil to see how healthy it was. So he considered himself a soil farmer instead of a crop farmer. So people are pretty serious about the richness of the soil really contributing to the flavor of the food. Any other questions about? Yeah. So some other ways that bringing your groceries, these are a little bit more Whole Foods specific. Hopefully we'll start to see these in some other places. This is a third-party certification program that we work with called the Global Animal Partnership, and it rates the different quality standards for the animals. So when you go in and you see if animal welfare is definitely something that you're concerned about or interested in, when you see a piece of chicken that's separated 1 versus one that's separated 4, and one is just a little bit more expensive, it's like, hey, I really do want my chicken to have a pasture-centered environment where they have different stimulation. So Foods Market, it's like it's very focused on empowering shoppers to make the decisions that are important to them and having the resources to make the selections, but at each step of the way it seems like there's a ton of information, all the different, so the first step is no cages, no crates, no crowding, to step 2, which is also having an enriched environment. Step 3, enhanced outdoor access. 4, pastured centered, means they're raised predominantly outside all the time. So sometimes it's difficult, and when we see a pasture centered local Wisconsin item, it's like really impressive that you manage to keep your chickens outside all year round. That's always fun. And then step 5, we have an animal center, no physical alterations. And step 5 plus is an animal centered entire life on the same farm. So for GMOs, people are definitely, the concern about GMOs is rising. It's definitely a conversation that's being had in the news a lot. One way that always you can buy, or if you're looking to avoid GMOs, you can always just choose organic. By the definition of organic, GMOs are not included in those products. At Whole Foods, we have a 365 everyday value. That's our value products. Those, the first step that we took is making sure there's no GMOs in our sort of store brand there. And then right now we have these bib tags in all of our aisles until labeling becomes something that's mandatory on the products. In the meantime, we have labeled all the items that have been certified by the third-party nonprofit, the non-GMO project. And then green cleaners. Next time you come to the store, you'll be seeing all these different tags, and you're like, oh my gosh! But underneath all the products and the cleaners, there's different colors, and those will tell you where they are on the eco scale.
And green is the best.
Green is the best. Yes. Then you can see at the top there, the 7th generation is yellow. That's the one I like to go for. And then there's Myers there. That's a green label. Sometimes I like to find the product, do a little aisle research, and then I pick my favorite product, and then I can find it other places as well. Any other questions? No? Yes.
With the cleaners, is there any way without trial and error or getting info from a friend?
To pick ones that work. Yeah, it's definitely, especially things like laundry detergent. We always encourage people to return products that they don't, because we try to have a pretty loose return policy in our store to encourage people, like, no risk, just try it. Even if you try it and you use the whole thing and you say, this didn't really work out very well, but you don't want to waste it, because that's a big thing too. If you return it, it'll kind of go to waste. You can bring it back and say, hey, this didn't really work out. And there's a lot of different blogs out there where people will rate the different ones and say what works and what doesn't work. There's a lot of tips about how to make your own green cleaners with baking soda and vinegar, how to add essential oils and different things like that.
Can you, you probably said this and I missed it. What does GMO stand for?
Genetically modified organisms. So it's sort of, it's different from place to place. One of the reasons that people are concerned about it in the U.S. is because it's pretty pervasive and there aren't a lot of regulations on how things are genetically modified. So we do have different GMO products in the U.S. that have been banned in different parts of the EU, or different pesticides that are permitted here that aren't permitted there. So people have gotten to the point where the concern level is increased for those different items.
You talked about cloning too. How would fish be cloned, or how?
Yeah, they clone different fish to create, I guess, the superfish. It's not something that we permit at Whole Foods Market, but it is something that is done overseas. And some of the items, when you look at the items to avoid on the Seafood Watch created by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, a lot of these tilapia, Asia farmed, there's some different things there where you want to make sure you avoid some of the concerns with the imported farmed fish, or that they don't necessarily have as much regulation in terms of what they can feed them, what chemicals they can use, and
Aren't they artificially coloring their salmon? They're giving them pills so that they have
Yeah.
a nice pink color?
yeah, most, I wouldn't say most, but definitely salmon is one of those things that it's really common to feed them. And actually, there's natural ways that they can do that too, to give them but there's definitely things that they want to avoid to give them that really bright color.
It's cool. So I think it would be nice.
Well, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.